All right, man. Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. We got another Factual Friday here. I'm the brother Azrael from the Hopeful Elect. We also got brother Yeshaya on here, and we also got the Najid Melchizedek, right?
There we go. Yes, sir.
And if y'all know the brother, we put him on our story a lot, so I'm sure some of y'all have seen his familiar face. First of all, shalom to everybody that's gonna watch this tonight. That might hop on. People that's gonna watch it in the future. You know what I'm saying? Shalom, and also Shabbat Shalom to those that keep it. You know what I'm saying, on the Saturday or Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. And say shalom to y'all. You know what I'm saying? Keep enduring. Y'all could be doing anything on a Friday night, on a Saturday, but instead y'all keeping the commandments of the Lord, man. But hopefully this video is gonna be a good one. Some current events, some things we need to be watchful for. But Khan, I'll let the brothers say stuff if they want to. I'm trying to get one more thing up. Let me see something. The brothers, y'all had anything to say?
Nah, man. Shabbat Shalom. All praise.
Khan, same, man. Shabbat Shalom. All praise, glory to the Most High. Shout out to the brother Najid, coming on. Been talking about doing this for a long, long time. So it's finally good that we get to have at least a little introductory, current event, prophecy, kind of mixture in between. And for those who don't know, man, I got to give all praise to the Most High for the brother Najid too, man, because he was definitely one of the brothers, as well as with the brother Drew and Ant, that helped bring me into the truth. So big shout out to the young lions, man, doing the work of the Most High.
Oh man, double honors to them. And like the brother said, man, this is overdue. This is long overdue. I know I've been talking to Najid for a minute. And there's been a few topics we meant to, get on and talk about, but hey, man's going to other Lord, so we here now.
Yes, sir.
Khan.
I don't know if I want to share my screen with the verses, but I do want to have some introductory verses before we start off. I guess I'll share my screen. It doesn't hurt nothing. Open up another tab. That's what I want. I think both of them coming out of Iraq or Ecclesiasticus. Let's see. Bear with me real quick. All right, let me see some. Read this. All right. So I'm gonna read this real quick before we get started. First and foremost, we want to give all praises to the Most High God by the way of His Son, who's an instrument of salvation for the nation. Man, we do this, for the edifying of our nation, and we do this to the glory of God and to obey Him and His word, right, as is commanded. We're going to get into that a little bit right here, right? This is Ecclesiasticus 39 and verse 1. But he that giveth his mind to the law of the Most High and is occupied in the meditation thereof will seek out the wisdom of all the ancient and be occupied in prophecies, right? So that's a heavy verse right there, because first, hey man, if we just go back to the beginning of that verse and walk through it slowly, you can see how heavy it is. It says, but he that giveth his mind to the law of the Most High. So, as we bethink ourselves in our captivity, and as we come back to the Most High God and His law, statutes, and commandments, and we're learning them and doing them to the best of our ability, these are some things that we should have in mind, right? We should be occupied in the meditation thereof. So we should be meditating day and night, daily, right? As the book of Psalms says, I believe that's Psalms 1 and 3. We should be occupied in these scriptures daily. It says we also will seek out the wisdom of all the ancient, right? The wisdom of all the ancient. That means the men and the women that were before us. Romans 15 and 4 tells us all things were written aforetime was written for our learning. Part of the things that are ancient are the prophecies. That's why it says, and be occupied in prophecy. It doesn't say be occupied on the couch. Don't be occupied in making $1 million. Don't be occupied in trying to have a good 401k, and don't be occupied a bunch of folly and madness, right? Not saying that that stuff won't help you in your state of captivity. Be occupied in prophecy, right? Always be watchful. Connor brother said he just got done reading this chapter and reading through this book right now. Ecclesiasticus, man, what the brother Yeshaya say and the brother Benal say, a shot of Sirach, man, will keep the demons away. You know, take that back. Take a shot of Sirach every day, man. You should read a script. Even after you finish the book of Sirach, reading, you know what I'm saying? That's a lot of wisdom in that book.
Daily dose of Sirach, man, each and every day.
Man, be occupied in prophecy. So I want to get this another precept. It's going to be in Sirach as well. Before we get into the video, 5 and 7. Right. So this one says, make no tarrying to turn to the Lord. Hold up, let me make it bigger for y'all. Make it bigger. It says, make no tarrying to turn to the Lord, and put not off from day to day, right? For suddenly shall the wrath of the Lord come forth, and in thy security thou shalt be destroyed and perish in the day of vengeance, right? So one thing that my brother, the Najid, right, always says is the beautiful thing about us knowing the secrets of this book and knowing who we are according to this book is so that we can see what's coming and act accordingly, right? And that's what this verse is saying. It's saying to be watchful, be mindful of the Lord, and don't put him off from day to day. Always be watching, right? Always see what's going on in the world. Always be watching your spirit. Always be careful to do what the Most High is asking for us to do, because suddenly, hey, wrath will come from the Lord, and you don't want it to come while you're sleeping in your bed like a thief in the night, right? You want to be able to use the gifts that was given to you, because if not, they was given to you in vain, right? It says if you put it off from day to day, right? Because, oh, I got to do this or I got to do that, instead of actually paying attention to the signs of the times, right? Many brothers is doing podcasts, videos, all different type of posts on social media to let you know what's happening in the world, and you really have to just be lazy and ignorant to not notice, and you have to be very vain to not want to understand what's going on in the world, or very scared, one or the other, right? And but it says, for suddenly shall the wrath of the Lord come forth, and in thy security, right? You're secure in your job, you're secure in your house, you're secure in your life, you got a nice little family, things are going good for you, right? It says, in your security, you'll be destroyed and perish in the day of vengeance. Why? Because you put the Lord off from day to day. You put prophecy off from day to day, right? So that's just a little introduction, getting into Salakia, tonight's video of current events. So I want to share my screen again so we can watch this video real quick. Let's see. All right, I'm gonna press play.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson. Tonight, you hate to start a Tuesday evening on a grim note, but one of the environmental catastrophes, one of the great environmental catastrophes of our time, is unfolding tonight off the coast of Denmark. The Nord Stream pipelines, which are enormous Russian-owned conduits that carry natural gas from Russia to Western Europe, have been as we speak.
Let me see. The brother said add him in. Okay, you added him. All right. Shalom, King.
Shalom, shalom. Hey, look, Shabbat Shalom. I see we have a lovely addition on today's class, man. Shalom to the brother Ned, man, the mighty
Shalom,
prophet
brother.
himself.
All
Come on,
praise.
man.
Shalom,
That is
man. All praise.
that's a gift, man. Being able to interpret the things inside the Bible. That is prophecy. Come on, go ahead.
No, that's all. That's all I had, man. Shalom, though.
All right. So I'm gonna play this from the beginning real quick.
Environmental catastrophes, one of the great environmental catastrophes of our time, is unfolding off the coast of Denmark.
So a point I wanted to make was he said that this was probably one of the most catastrophic catastrophes or natural disasters or whatever he said of our time, right? It's a lot of us that don't know that this happened. It's a lot of us that aren't paying attention to things like this happening, right? Because we're too busy partying, we're too busy making money, we're too busy being our own celebrities in our life. And this is why the Most High God says always be watching, right? Be watchmen for Israel, right? We had people that were on the watchtowers for every hour. And the shift change was in a way to where, hey, look, there was never a break in watching. And that's what we got to do. We got to stay watchful, right? So I'm gonna keep playing it.
The Nord Stream pipelines, which are enormous Russian-owned conduits that carry natural gas from Russia to Western Europe, have been breached. As we speak, Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 are pouring millions of cubic meters of natural gas into the Baltic Sea. Pictures from the air, which you can now see on your screen, show a toxic bubble field more than half a mile wide. You can only guess at how many marine mammals are being killed right now. Countless.
Right. We don't really care about the marine animals like that. Turn the YouTube off in your background. I'm lost. Oh, he said it's an echo. Is it an echo to y'all?
Yeah, it's a little one.
Con, it is, man. But anytime you share anything, man, it's always an echo. I was always just endured through it, man.
Oh, all right. Because I know I got it pulled up as a tab, so I mean, it's probably gonna echo. Huh?
Try seeing if it plays if you mute your screen while it plays.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Let me see real quick. I'm gonna try it.
But the lasting damage may be to the atmosphere. Natural gas is comprised of up to 90% methane. Methane, as Joe Biden has often told you, is the key driver of global warming, which is, of course, an existential threat to humanity and the planet. So if you're worried about climate change, what just happened to the Nord Stream pipelines is as close to the apocalypse as we have ever come.
So check this out, right? Before I skip forward in the video, what he's saying, he's making some major claims, man. He's talking about the apocalypse, right? And he's talking about also methane and what we use for a day-to-day to get around in our vehicles if you don't have a smart car or electric car, right? But Najid, I just wanted to get your opinion so far on pretty much I don't even know the word to use for it. The importance of why we need to be tuned into these pipelines, right? And how they're just dumping it into the ocean.
Well, yeah, two things on that. One, I think the fact that most people haven't heard about it, it almost keys in on the fact that there was somebody from the West that did it. There was somebody who has the influence to stop the media from reporting on it, because I mean, even looking for stories on it now is few and far between. Even when you Google it, it's few and far between as far as what it should be at the level it's at. Number two, you should pay attention to it because, like they said, one is millions of barrels of gas being poured into the ocean. Yo, it's the equivalent of, remember we heard about the BP spills a while ago. It's the equivalent of 4 or 5 of those happening like every day. But you know, natural gas is clear, as you can't see it, so people don't notice it as much. But Russia provides 50, 60, 70% of the natural gas that goes to Europe. Europe uses natural gas on a level that we don't quite understand in the U.S. Europe uses their natural gas to power their heat in their houses. They use the natural gas to cook. They use the natural gas for almost everything.
Right.
So the fact that this pipeline is spewing out the natural gas that already Europe is hurting for because Russia's already come to supply to them, and you still don't hear anything about it, shows you how powerful whoever did this is, how much control they really have over the media, how much control they have over these governments that are kind of just sitting back and you know, it also shows you that most governments wouldn't do it. So to put it in perspective, Germany gets 49% of its natural gas from Russia. Italy gets 46%. France gets 24%. North Macedonia, Bosnia, some smaller countries, Finland, Latvia, which are both still NATO countries, they get almost 100%. Some of them get 100, some of them get high 90% of their gas from Russia. So, I mean, this could go as far as to literally, it sounds crazy, sounds apocalyptic, but this could go as far as, man, I mean, it could be babies freezing to death. I mean, it could be people freezing to death in their homes because they don't have the gas to supply their, they don't have the gas to supply their heat. That's the only place they get it from. There's nowhere else for them to get it. They don't have natural gas, they don't get heat. So this pipeline busting is it's a massive importance, man. It's nothing you can compare it to in the U.S. other than, you know, an EMP getting dropped in our energy grid going out.
Dang, it's like that, like an EMP?
It's that big if it continues, right? If it were to continue, if it were to just completely get shut off, if Russia said tomorrow we got enough money and we don't want to sell Europe any more oil, I mean, we don't want to sell Europe any more natural gas, it's the equivalent of the EMP to them. They won't be able to heat their houses. They won't be able to cook. It's a detriment of a nation, especially one like Germany that gets 49%. That means half of the population of Germany can't cook. They can't heat their houses. They can't do anything. All they can do is sit back and hope that Russia decides to give them some more gas, or they can try to ship some in from Qatar. That's going to take 5, 6, 7 days to get there, and it's only 1, 2 tankers, which is going to make up for 0.5%. So you got to try to get 100, 200 tankers.
Yeah, man, that's tough because I know a few weeks back, we did another Factual Friday, going into like how a lot of these other countries are suffering because there's been said to be a war on energy, right? To be honest with you, at the time, I didn't know what they meant by a war on energy, right? And they were talking about how people are resorting to coal and firewood in some countries because of the war on energy. And I was just like, man, how could there be a war on energy, right? But now I'm starting to understand because, like you said, it has to be a powerful nation for this to go down and it be under wraps, right? And so that kind of leads into more so the part of the video that I wanted to emphasize that I'm gonna play right now. I'm gonna play that part right now because you kind of hit the nail on the head, right? And you know, even though this is Fox News, like we talked about, and it is kind of censored through the, you know, Republican lens, you know, I feel like we can trust it. The reason why I feel like we can trust it is because, you know, whichever party doesn't hold the presidency, I feel like you should listen to the other party because they're going to bring out the news that they don't, you know, that the president party doesn't want you to, you know, listen to, right? So that's why I like to listen to the Tucker Carlson show. Because even though he can be kind of ignorant sometimes, you know, he lets us know what's going on in the world, you know. So, but I'm gonna play this right here from 7 minutes. Get straight into it because it is a war, man. It's a war on energy, and these are acts of war. If we didn't know, and like I said earlier, a lot of us didn't know, right? Because really. Go ahead.
And I'm gonna say this right here. The only reason that Russia hasn't went the way of Libya and Syria and Afghanistan and Iraq and all the other countries that produce natural resources, most of Africa, the only reason it hasn't went that way is because Vladimir Putin has more nukes than anybody else in the world. Guarantee you, Europe, if they had the opportunity, they would go into Russia and take it. point blank period, no questions asked. Another reason why Vladimir Putin doesn't want those troops, NATO troops, sitting on his border with Ukraine, because he knows at any given time, if they get the opportunity, if they sense the opportunity, they'll go in and take it because they can't survive without it. He holds all the power right now. Europe is under the command of Vladimir Putin. That's why they're not helping Ukraine. That's why the world is going the way it's going now.
Right. And you know, after watching your live, I think they came out with a am I chopping up? Am I chopping up or am I still coming in clearly?
Nah, you good on my end. You ain't chopping up.
Yeah, you good on my end too.
Cool. I know I think they came out with like the results of that vote that you was talking about in your live. And a lot of those countries where you said that was teetering, a lot of them, they didn't even place a vote. You know what I'm saying? Didn't even know that was an option. You didn't have to place a vote, but a lot of them, they didn't even place a vote. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, on the UN Security Council, Russia. I think it was China and India. They just like, nah, we're gonna sit this one out. Right. They can't upset Russia.
I think if I'm not mistaken, either France or Italy as well. I can't remember though.
I wouldn't doubt it. You can't. If Italy right now makes Vladimir Putin upset with them, Italy is gonna starve to death.
All right, man. So, but we're gonna talk about that too after this video, because I want the people to be informed on that as well. Because, like I said, man, I know a lot of people, and excuse my French, they're just being niggas, man. They don't know what's going on in the world. You know, they're not keeping up, nor do they care. But it's our job to be watchmen and to make it interesting and let them know as clear as possible what's going on in the world, right? And related to the Bible. So I'm about to play this video.
Of course, he responded immediately, and here's what he wrote. Thank you, USA.
So over the past 6 months, we've been investigating as well.
So once again, did the Biden administration really do this? It's hard to believe. Given that it's an atrocity, it's effectively an act of terrorism, we don't want to make that accusation. But we should tell you that, maybe not coincidentally, today, a brand new pipeline was unveiled, a pipeline that carries non-Russian natural gas in roughly the same area as Nord Streams 1 and 2. This is called the Baltic Pipe. It was inaugurated in Poland. It will carry.
And right there, man, I seen that. And when I heard that, I was like, dang, this is really an act of war. One, you know, he's kind of saying like, if we did do this, right, that's an act of terrorism. We're always talking about the terrorists, but now we're committing the acts of terrorism. You know, that's an act of war. And also, it is kind of coincidental that out of nowhere, we have this beef with Russia, and now we don't need them anymore because another pipeline just showed up out of nowhere, right? It's kind of weird to me. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I definitely think it's an act of war. One, not even necessarily on the tip that it's another pipeline and that they don't need that Nord Stream, because that pipeline, that Baltic pipe, it doesn't transport enough natural gas for them to even think that can replace the Nord Stream. At least right now, they make it pump it up. I don't know if another country in the north, I don't know where that's coming from. But I have to see if there's another northern country that can produce the amount of gas Russia can produce. But you have to look at it this way, right? Germany, France, no major country in Europe, maybe the United Kingdom, but other than that, no major country in Europe is going to take down that Nord Stream 2 pipeline because they need the natural gas. The only country in NATO that doesn't need the natural gas is the U.S. And the only reason that the U.S. is the only one that'll so-called stand up to Russia is because the rest of the country can't because they need natural gas. So if I can shut that pipeline down and you can't get the gas anyway, I can convince you to say, hey, let's go a little harder on Russia.
Right. Hey, look. And what you said, once again, is true, right? It might have some gas in there, but ultimately it's not what we used to, right? So things are going to have to dwindle down. And that's what the video is going to go into, right? You kind of ahead of this, you ahead of the game each time I ask you the question, because they're finna go into what he believes the agenda of Joe Biden's administration is, right? And it kind of aligns with what you just said.
carry natural gas from Norway through Denmark to Poland and other countries nearby. And it's likely to do very well since now it has less competition. Making sense? What does the White House say about this? How are they accounting for what happened today? Well, they're not exactly enthusiastically denying responsibility for it. Instead, they're looking at the upside. Here's the president's publicist noting that the destruction of yet another energy pipeline is yet another opportunity for you to buy an electric car.
I wanted to stop it right there just because, man, I don't know about y'all, but I was always iffy of these electric vehicles, man. I understand, you know, time is we getting up there in the future and all that, but technology, man, it's getting to be too much to where, man, I just was like, and what's that one movie, Denal, that we watched where they had the EMP attack?
You talking about?
Was it Red Dawn?
Red Dawn was that was a movie about the foreign insurgents.
Yeah.
But
this one was about like it was like a wolf gang or something like that.
Yeah, you talking about and all the cars stopped and everything like that?
Right.
I want to say that was a TV show.
No, it was a movie. I can't remember it, but anyway, in the movie, all the cars shut down because, you know, all the cars had a chip in them, which like all the cars nowadays got a chip in them. But if we don't have any gas cars, man, and everything's run off electricity, we are completely at the hands of the people that control that quote unquote energy, quote unquote electricity, right? And that's really scary that we're seeing them destroy a gas pipeline to open up a gas pipeline that has slim to none gas in it just to push us in the direction where they want to. To me, that's kind of like a dictatorship, without, you know, saying they're a dictatorship. Go ahead.
Hegemony.
Right.
Kind of, man. You know what I'm saying? When things are this easy, like, or you want to do away with the power of gasoline, or just destroy all the gasoline. You know what I'm saying? When it becomes that simple, man, everything becomes clear. But I want to note, we can't think of the movie's name, but even in that movie when we watched, man, the only thing that that saved anybody that was in that movie was, you know, that old country man with that old boxy truck. You know what I'm saying? That still ran on gasoline. You know what I'm saying? Because up to a certain point, only everybody only had cars up to a certain date, right? But he was the only one that had a car that preceded that specific date. And I brought that out to say that I believe in UK, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but in UK they already established that if you don't have an electric car by 2020 something, you'll be going against their law, right? You get locked up for that. You know what I'm saying? They're trying to push electric cars on everybody, and they're giving you a time limit to do so. And I believe that, I think it's in like the 2030s, if I'm not you know, misspeaking.
Yeah, it's 2035. Shit, California and New York got it too.
Con, man. So you be going against the quote unquote law, right? If you don't have an electric car by these times. And that's just crazy to me, man. Right? You know what I'm saying? It's not like they're giving you extra money to go get you one. You know what I'm saying? They're just putting this out there like, hey, look, you have X amount of time to go get one, make it happen. They haven't even gave out the penalties yet for if you don't. You know what I'm saying? Which is crazy. What are the penalties gonna be if you get caught with a gas car? You know what I'm saying?
Hey,
Not only that, I know there's a brother on this live. Sorry, there's a brother on this live that got an F-250, right? A gas guzzler, right? What if he has a gas guzzler? What are they gonna do to that brother if he keeps driving around that F-250? Right?
Go ahead, Najee.
And I was just gonna say, man, and just think about how dystopian it can really get. You know, you get as far as like a Tesla or the Mustang Mach-E or the Audi i8, the ones that can drive themselves. Now imagine when you had refused to get that vaccine, the car's just gonna drive to the place, strap you down, roll down the window, man, and it's over.
Right.
It gets really dangerous once you give people a certain amount of control, man. It can get very dystopian very fast.
Scary
Right.
hours are approaching, man.
Right. And as we move towards the mark of the beast, whether brothers believe it's spiritual or physical, right? We can see that we're moving towards a time where we're gonna have less and less options of freedom, right? The brother Najid is always an advocate for getting out the major cities, because that's where the things are gonna happen first, right? I remember when we was in a town called Warner Robins when the first panty whammy happened, if you can understand, and it was pretty much like it wasn't even happening in Warner Robins, right? Riots was going around the United States, and everything seemed kind of normal, and that's just like a smaller town. They might have a lot of people there now, but the smaller the town, the more normal the more normality will your life be, right? If I'm saying that correctly. But all of what the brother's saying is true, because if we looking at how scary an EMP attack might be, right? Imagine having no gas. Imagine having no heat. Talk about pray your flight not be in the wintertime. Imagine having no heat. We are not used to that. We're not used to not going to the thermostat or these fancy air conditioners anymore. We're not used to doing that when we feel uncomfortable in our houses, right? But imagine them taking that away from us. And that's what, kind of what's ramping up here is they're playing with our lives now. It's not just political talk. They're playing with our lives, right? Let me finish this, what the White House has to say, right, about what happened. And of course, they're gonna use Eve, right? Of course, they're gonna use Eve.
And Eve gonna sign up to do it.
Right. And her family gonna be proud at home.
She might be a prophetess, though. You never know.
As you all know, these pipelines weren't pumping gas into Europe at this time. NS2 was never operational, as you guys know. NS1 has not been operational for weeks because Putin has weaponized energy. And we have said this many times before. This just drives home the importance.
That's going into what the brother Nadia was talking about. How Putin knows what strings what strings he can pull, right? If all odds are against you, right? Najee, if you could give the example that you gave in your live about people breaking into your house, because that was a perfect analogy in my mind.
Yeah. So if somebody told you, man, hey, man, I'm gonna kill you when I see you, and you see them sitting outside your house, what are you gonna do? Are you just gonna say, especially say you in there with your family, you and your family inside your house, because I'm gonna kill you and your family when I see you. There's no way I'm gonna let this man just sit outside my house. Can't let it happen. It's impossible. That's the same reason Vladimir Putin cannot let NATO put troops, nuclear weapons, missiles, or anything else in eastern Ukraine that can touch his major city, his capital city, in 10 minutes. It's just not feasible. It's not something that's possible. It's not plausible. It doesn't make sense. The same way you won't let that man sit outside your house and threaten your family, or at least I hope you wouldn't let that man sit outside your house and threaten your family.
Right, man. So if you playing the defense and this anything that you can do, you're gonna use it to your advantage, right? If I know, right, my team's good at pressing in basketball, I'm a press, whether the crowd likes it or not, right? Whether the crowd wants to show or whatever. If I know it's a possibility of me losing, right, I'm a press. And that's what Putin is doing. He knows that he's in control of all of these pipelines and the comfortability of so many different countries. He said, hey, look, I'm gonna use that to my advantage. And so she's trying to say, he's weaponized energy, and this is the reason why X, Y, and pretty much saying, hey, look, we didn't need him, and this is why we did what we did, without saying that they did it. Let me keep playing it.
importance of our efforts to work together to get alternative gas supplies to Europe and to support efforts to reduce gas consumption and accelerate true energy independence by moving to clean energy economy.
Oh,
Hey, I'm Joey, and I'm one of the 30 AI voices from
moving to clean energy. Say the people who very may well be responsible for letting methane into the Baltic Sea and into the atmosphere at a scale that most people can't imagine. The people lecturing you about your SUV may have blown up a natural gas pipeline and created one of the great catastrophes of our time in its effect on the environment. If they did this, this will be one of the craziest, most destructive things any American administration has ever done. But it would also be totally consistent with what they do. What do? They destroy. These people build nothing, not one thing. Instead, they tear down and they desecrate, from historic statues to the Constitution to energy infrastructure. And no one in Congress is trying to stop any of it. They're just preparing for the inevitable fallout. Tonight, the Senate just advanced a spending bill with $35 million for the Department of Energy to, quote, prepare for and respond to potential nuclear and radiological incidents in Ukraine. What? The spending bill also brings the total U.S. expenditure on Ukraine, the war, but also funding its government and energy for Ukraine, to $67 billion on the eve of what could be a massive economic disruption. Here, to our economy, $67 billion. How much is that? Well, it's more than Russia's entire military budget last year. And Congress is expected to fully pass the bill later this week, with Republicans nodding along like the zombies they are. What will be the effect of this? Every action has a reaction, equal and opposite. Blow up the Nord Stream pipelines?
So yeah, man, they blew up the Nord Stream pipelines. To me, it seems like it's a no-brainer who did it, right? And like the brother said, it's not in news media here, right? I'm pretty sure if you're in Russia, or if you're in any of these other countries that's affected by it, I'm pretty sure it's all throughout their news. But we don't see it, we don't hear it. It's being hid. Like the brother said, even if you try to Google it, it's slim to none findings, right? So we have a mind of who did this. I want to read this real quick, just because, hey, look, they're real crafty and witty in their words, right? And what they're doing is an old trick in the book. What they're doing is, we could say it's called being a hypocrite, but also this is what they're doing. They're causing a problem and then trying to provide a solution to that problem. Pretty much like with that sickness that was going around in 2020, right? You caused the sickness and then try to cure the sickness that you caused. And that's what we'll blow up the pipeline, but we got your answer. This is Psalms 58:3. It says, the wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies, right? With media, you gotta filter everything that you hear in media, because guess what? Everything is for a political game. You're not getting 100% truth. I know it's a lot of my friends that's in the world, and we'll have conversations, and some of the sites and some of the people that I might have them to watch or listen to or read, they don't take it as credible. But the credible sources they have is CNN, is the stuff they read in the newspaper. I'm like, how is that source credible? And when they've been proven to lie to us for years after years, right? But yeah, man, I just felt like the people needed to know, hey, look, we're that coupled with what you talked about on your live, man. We're at the brink of a war, man, and it's almost getting tiring talking about being at the edge of it. But we're really right there.
Right. World War III is nigh, right? I wanted to share my screen real quick, if I may, because I got a video that'll go kind of with what you were talking about earlier, man. I'm gonna share this video, man. See if it'll let me.
Right. I want to read this real quick while you get in that too. Revelation 11 and 14. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. And we can see that with World War III. Hey, look, the third world war is coming quickly, and we got to be prepared for it spiritually and physically, right? We need to get our minds wrapped around the fact that, hey, look, we might be forced into a situation, whether we like it or not. We don't have no say so. They're keeping this stuff under wraps because they know that they're committing acts of war, right?
Come on. Let me see if I can. Let me know if you can hear it.
That they don't want anybody living out in the boonies.
You can hear it?
Anybody that's got a couple of acres of land and his own water supply and can grow his own food and that kind of thing, or have some sheep or some chickens, these people are a threat to the collectivist society because they aren't going to go to the politicians and say, please feed me, please clothe me, please give me shelter. They tend to be independent.
That's all I wanted to show, man. I saw that this week, man. You know, and it's crazy that things like that surface amongst communities that aren't ours, right? And a lot of people are going to be self-sustainable, but who's going to be caught in? The scriptures talk about us being caught in snares and traps, right? And the brother brought it out that they're causing a problem to quote unquote solve it, right? And that's a snare and that's a trap. And who's going to be caught in this snap more than our people, right? Because as so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, man, we fall victim to trying to be successful in this society, right? And we'll do anything to fit in, right? We now we're into stocks and all that stuff, and all that stuff is great. You know what I'm saying? I would say don't put all your eggs in one basket. We're into technology. We're into relying on the government for everything. Think about our people, man. They got us where we're relying on the government, even from the ones that are at a level of poverty. A lot of their incomes come straight from the government, even their housing, right? And so a lot of this stuff is going to be forced upon us, and our people are not going to have any leg to stand on. Why? Because we haven't built a sustainable life for ourselves, like a lot of these other communities have been doing.
Right, that's right. And one thing I wanted to say to the Najit is, I watched in your video you was like NATO pretty much was created to war against the Soviet Union, but there's no Soviet Union no more. There's just Russia, and Russia believes that since there's no Soviet Union, there shouldn't be no NATO, right? And that was a great that was a great way to say it because it made perfect sense. But I would stand on this point, right? Is there really a NATO, or is there really just the United States, right? Because I feel like we're starting to see more people, and like you said in your video, understand that they don't have no protection in the United States. The United States might help, they might not. We starting to see more people, kind of be afraid of Russia or kind of just want to look out for themselves. And so what I'm saying there is, when it comes down to throwing nukes, who's to say that we're not on Russia's, hit list, if not the first to hit out, right? Because it seems like if we're striking pipelines and if we're aiding to territories that's not us, it seems like, hey, look, the clear problem here is the Western world and the head of the Western world right now, which is Babylon, right? So I feel like we are in such a dangerous position when it comes to trying to fight this crazy man, because I feel like he can do it. He got the punches, he got the bullets, right? We living in a place where they say, look, no bullets, and he's living in a place where he got all the bullets.
Hey, before you give commentary on that, I know I came on 11 minutes late. Did you guys plug the video that you're talking about, that you're referencing, or just the title at least? Con, man. Before you give commentary, if you want, you can plug your social media in, and I don't know if you titled the video that we're referencing, but you can give the title as well, so brothers and sisters can go watch that as well.
So yeah, my Instagram is at the Najit Melchizedek. I don't know if I pronounced it right now. Let me figure it out.
It's the one written underneath your thumbnail, right?
Yeah. So that's my Instagram. The video is no man, it's cool. Not talking about it. The video is titled "Ukraine tries to join NATO. Russia annexes Ukraine regions and will use nukes to defend them." And also, wrong one. And also, Nest has a new planetary defense system. So that's the video.
Con.
So if you want to go look at that, you can. Yeah, as far as NATO and the U.S. and these different NATO, NATO has 30 members. And I always say this, man, I doubt that the U.S. is going to be in a war with Russia or China or even India, Brazil, or Poland, for that matter, about Latvia and Finland. I just don't see it happening. I think NATO was created to give the illusion of power without ever really focusing on having the true power. The U.S. I don't think has interest in defending these smaller countries. I don't think they ever will. I think, like I said, Japan is really, that's why they're saying, listen, not only are we going to amp up our men willing to meet with Kim Jong-un in North Korea, I think Taiwan is realizing this, which is why they try to copy this. I think South Korea realizes this, which is why the government talks out two sides. They're willing to meet with Kim Jong-un in the next breath. He's the most of us if it comes down to it. I think Ukraine is what you're trying to show to the rest of the world. Nah, they're not really going to help us. Not only necessarily because they don't want to, because they don't have the military might anymore. If you pay attention to the fall of Rome, it was still led to the fall of Rome. One, it was over expansion. All right, so Rome expanded too far, so they couldn't defend our territory. Territory 2 was the thing that's going on in the U.S. right now, and it was kind of getting rid of gender norms. So men was doing things women do, women was doing things men do. Got very strange. The same way the U.S., you see the U.S. getting very strange. So the U.S. is in the same situation as Rome. They've expanded too far. So the U.S. cannot fight a war in the South Pacific with China and also fight a war in Eastern Europe with Ukraine. It's not the military doesn't have that power anymore. Number one, they don't have the manpower anymore. So if you go back to World War II when the U.S. was so powerful, one reason they were so powerful is because even our people who were being horribly mistreated saw something they could fight for, right? Some type of freedom, some type of, hey, man, you can live how you want to over here. At least most people can, even though we couldn't. They thought maybe one day we could. Now nobody sees that. There's very few people in the U.S. right now that were signed up to go fight the U.S. military. Quite frankly, most of them, they got to rather go to jail than fight some random place for the U.S. So the U.S. doesn't will see. They can't fight as many people as they used to. Going to World War III. World War I and World War II, the U.S. got involved in the other countries. Adolf Hitler was extremely upset with Japan about Pearl Harbor. Extremely upset because it just keep them out of it. Without the U.S. in World War II, Europe is now called Germany. Without the U.S. in World War I, Europe is now called Germany. The U.S. dominated the world for so long because they had almost an unlimited amount of people because people believed in something, and they also had the budget for the military. Now they got the budget, but they don't got the people. On top of that, it's about diversity and calling people right now.
Con, you kind of chopping up,
Yeah, it's froze now.
Yeah. You froze out.
Power now. It's money. And the one thing about the money, right? They can spend a little money, but you can't. That's why Russia's so powerful. You can spend as much as you want, but Russia doesn't have. I mean, most countries don't have what Russia has. They don't have that military industrial complex, so they can't develop weapons as fast. China has some of the most money in the world, but they still can't get as many aircraft carriers as anybody else because you have to have a certain infrastructure to build that. So they can spend as much as they want in Ukraine. They can spend as much as they want anywhere. These countries will never catch up with Russia and China militarily because it takes years and years to learn how to build these weapons. Other nations got to buy them and so on.
Hey, and if you could bag up about 15, 20 seconds, because you had paused, you froze for a brief minute, and I didn't catch what you was going into.
You froze. Oh, my bad.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna. You was about to give a like a time frame where he froze up, or a last quote.
Yeah, a last quote.
I think the last thing I heard him say was he was talking about how U.S. would have been called Germany.
Right.
Oh, sorry. That was a long time ago. Okay.
Bro, you froze for a brief minute.
Yeah, I'm tripping. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. Yeah. So without the U.S. in World War I, Europe will be called Germany right now. Without the U.S. in World War II, Europe will be called Germany right now. The U.S. had a lot of power back then because they had like unlimited manpower. Because, like I said, people believe the U.S. stood for something. So they could almost get unlimited manpower. And they had unlimited money. Now the U.S. still has pretty much unlimited money until this economy falls. But that money cannot build military, right? Because building a military takes a military-industrial complex, right? It's very few countries in the world. I said this before. You can judge a country's military power on how many aircraft carriers, not only do they have, but how many have they built themselves. The fact that China now has 2 aircraft carriers they built themselves shows you their military power because they have a military-industrial complex that can build an aircraft carrier. That's rare. There's about 7 countries in the world that have aircraft carriers. Things like that decide whether your military is powerful enough to engage in a world war. The U.S. you can't give Ukraine enough money to develop that type of military. It takes years and years and years. That's why Russia can go through periods of extreme down economy, and their military can still stabilize as one of the top 2 or top 3, maybe it might drop down to 4, but no lower than 4, top 4 militaries in the world. Because it takes a certain amount of years, it takes a certain amount of military industrial complex to be able to engage in this war. Right? So the fact that the U.S. now they'll say, yeah, we'll give you money, we won't defend you. Money ain't really helping these countries. These countries don't have the military to be able to defend themselves, so they got to either focus on, getting the military together that can defend themselves. Or they got to do what most of them are doing. They got to fall under China or Russia and just hope, okay, well, if I be your friend, you don't attack me. That's why most countries in the Indo-Pacific, like, yeah, we'll just take China money and be their friend because the U.S. ain't gonna help me. I don't want to die. Same thing with most countries in Eastern Europe. That's why Slovenia refuses to go to where the West because they're like, bro, listen, we see what happened with Ukraine. If we piss Vladimir Putin off, we're gonna get the same thing they got. I don't want it. You don't make me gonna help me.
Right. And I got a question. Now, this is a kind of a spin. It's kind of a spin in the question I'm going to ask because it's not directly related to Germany and Russia. But what do you believe that with the sanctions that I want to say, what is it? The sanctions that America have on Venezuela. Do you think that is playing a role right now in the push for necessary, I would say more electric-based things because, fuel prices are high because of the sanctions?
Yeah, check this out. So the sanctions that U.S. have on Venezuela is pretty funny situation. They put those sanctions on Venezuela because they don't like the way the government runs. Right? When we decided that we weren't going to buy more gas from Russia, they actually went to niggas down and said, hey, listen.
Hold on, you freezing. Hold on. You're going in and out.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I had to turn the Wi-Fi off. Mississippi, man. Thanks, too great. But yeah, they actually went back to niggas Maduro and was like, hey man, listen, can you sell us oil? Like, will you sell us oil? He's like, nah, I'm okay. I'm selling the crude oil to Russia. We're doing all right. I don't really want to sell you anything. Last time I let BP in here, they tried to take over my country. So we're okay. So that push, and also Saudi Arabia now is not under as much control as they like. So Saudi Arabia used to be a symbiotic relationship. Saudi Arabia gives us oil and they kind of allow us to set the oil prices in the world in exchange for protection. Saudi Arabia spent so much money on their military recently, they've also got military experience beating the hell out of Yemen. They don't necessarily need the protection from the U.S. anymore, so they're beginning to buckle a little more in the U.S. So that's where you see the push coming in. Where you see the push coming in for more electric in the U.S. because we can no longer control the oil markets anywhere in the world. We can't control them in Saudi Arabia. We can't control them in Venezuela. We definitely can't control them in Russia. We can't control them in Iran. We got kicked out of Afghanistan. Russia kicked us out of Syria. There's nowhere left for us to really get oil from. So we got to push for something else. It's inevitable. There's nowhere else in the world right now that the U.S., I hate to say we, kind of live, but it's very few places that the U.S. can get oil from now or that they can control the market for oil. So they got to try to get away from it as much as possible. I don't know how possible it is.
Yeah, you think with even having those sanctions lifted, you think that it still would be a situation whereas it's almost like we're a nomad right now, like we ain't got nowhere to go.
Yeah, precisely. So the U.S. doesn't have any friends. You're going to see the whore burn in a little while. Once Western Europe realizes that the U.S. can't help anymore militarily, the U.S. won't have any friends left. The U.S. will be in trouble because nobody else in the world really wants to do business with us now, and they're not forced to. So that SWIFT system, what I always talk about, they used to keep the U.S. hegemony alive and strong. The SWIFT system was every country in the world. So if I was in India, which has rupees, and I wanted to trade with Russia, which has rubles, I had to take my rupees and exchange them for USD, exchange the USD for rubles, and that's how I traded through the SWIFT system. So the U.S. could kick you out and say, well, now you can't trade, can't do anything about it now because of, Bitcoin and not necessarily Bitcoin, but just blockchain and some of the advancements there. Russia is able to trade with India directly, ruples to rubles. So you no longer need that SWIFT system. It gets rid of the hegemony. And also, I'm not scared of the U.S. militarily because you're teaching your troops proper pronouns instead of teaching them how to fight. I'm not really afraid of you. Can't do anything to me. I got no reason to listen to what you got to say.
Right. And this is a cliche. If you've been in the knowledge of the truth for a minute, you already know this precept. People put it in their truth music. People say it all the time. But Revelation 18:2, man. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen. I watched the video one time, and the brother or the elder broke it down in such a way. He said the reason why they have it here, could it be the reason why they say is fallen, fallen being kind of like a present tense, a present past tense. And he said they had it repeat itself is because, man, it's falling in increments, man. Like the brother Najid is saying, and we lost this, then we lost this, then we're not friends with them, and we're not friends with them, and we can't have access to this, and we can't, you know what I'm saying? And what Babylon is doing is putting forth a facade so that the people in the great city will be deceived in that what they call an American dream, right? And we'll stay asleep and we'll think that everything's okay. So that's why when you talk to some of your friends that don't know what's going on, they can't fathom another country taking us out. They can't fathom us being in debt to somebody, even though they know we're in debt. They can't fathom that we're no longer the upper hand in every situation anymore, right? Like the brother said, World War I, different case. World War II, different case. But this right here, it says Babylon the Great is fallen, and become the habitation of devils. Because it's nothing but deception going here, right? Devil just means deceiver. Nothing but deception. And the hold of every foul spirit and cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Verse 3 is the point, right? For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, right? What I want to make emphasis on here is the wine of the wrath. We know that they all drink of the fornication, and we know, like the brother said, even with going back to World War I and World War II, right? Europe and Germany are what they are because of America, because of Babylon. But guess what? It's coming to a time where, people are seeing that Babylon is not the great whore that she once was, right? And a lot of these people that's getting caught up in NATO and stuff like that, they're going to, if they don't get right and they don't, think for themselves, right, and think best for their places, they're gonna get touched too. Because it says, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath. So guess what? They're going to partake in the wrath that is coming to this place as well. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies, right? And like the brother said, I mean, roles have reversed now, man. We don't need the USD no more. We don't need US merchants no more. We don't need y'all. And that's what the earth is coming to, isolation. Right? And it's really crazy, once again, I say, because our people don't know we're being isolated. We think we still live in the dream. And that's a scary sight, man.
God.
Naja, could you go over I know it's like 59 minutes now. Could you go over what you went over in your live as far as the annexation? Because I know a lot of our people don't really know what's going on there, and just kind of make it simple, kind of like you did in your live video. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't really know what it meant either, right? But you put it in pretty plain words.
Yeah, so Russia held votes in four regions. They held votes in 4 regions to annex different areas of Ukraine. One of them is Donetsk and one of them is Luhansk. And there are 2 more regions, all of them in eastern Ukraine. They held referendum votes for these people to decide whether they want to be part of the so-called Russian Federation or Ukraine. Right? All these people according to Russia.
Salakia, what's annex mean for the brothers and sisters that might not know?
All right, so annex pretty much just means take over. So they're going to become a part of Russia, kind of like what the U.S. did with Alaska, Hawaii. I mean, everywhere they got. All right, so they're just taking it in and saying you're now a part of Russia. So instead of you being a part of Ukraine, you're now a part of Russia. If I bought a house, if I bought 2 parcels of land beside each other, I could annex one and create one parcel, one big land. So if I bought 1 acre on this side and 3 acres on this side, I could annex the 1 to the 3, 4, and it become one parcel. So Russia annexed these regions of Ukraine. One, they annexed them officially because, like I said, in international law and also in the Russian Constitution, there are certain rights and privileges that Russia can use defensively to engage in war in regions that are considered part of Ukraine. All right, so they annexed these regions so they're able to defend them. And even the president, Dmitry Medvedev, even told them, listen, we will defend these areas with nuclear arsenals if necessary. We'll defend these areas to the end of the earth. These are now Russian areas. These now belong to Russia, and we'll defend them with everything that Russia has. So the reason for annexing was exactly that. Now we can defend these areas as if they're part of Russia. We don't have to. This isn't no longer an offensive war. We're now on the defense. If anybody is approaching this territory, we reserve certain rights to defend ourselves against intruders. So that's what everybody inside these regions will now consider. The same thing they did with Crimea in 2014. This is Russia's normal MO, right? It's a region they have now part of the country called Chechnya, which was an independent country at one point. They annexed. They just went in, fought a war, took it over. Now it's one of Russia's most loyal areas in their country. And that's where all their special forces come from. Their special forces called Chechnya Special Forces. The Muslims from the area called Chechnya in Russia. The same thing with Crimea, like I said in 2014. This Russia's normal MO. That's why I was really shocked when they went into Kiev the way they did. But that's not what they do. They attack certain areas that have a lot of pro-Russian sentiment. They just annex them into Russia. Most times people just let it happen. Those countries in the area know nowhere near as powerful as Russia. So they annex them just so they can defend them with everything they got. So now these nations, according to these areas, now according to Russia, are Russian areas. It's the equivalent of the U.S. saying we now own Jamaica, don't touch it.
And so these other countries that are being annexed, do they have any say-so?
Well, yeah, so they're all part of Ukraine. It's almost like states. So in the way we would put it, it's almost like states in the U.S. So it would be like Mexico saying we're going to hold a vote in New Mexico and Nevada for those states to join Mexico. So those people, they had a referendum. Some people say the referendum was fake. Some people said it was real. Most of these regions had already voted to join Russia anyway. So if you go back to 2014, the Crimean situation, what I just did, something bad. But the Crimean situation in Russia, what happened there, I just tore something up. But what happened there was the same thing. If you go back and you look, what happened in that situation was Russia annexed Crimea, and they went back and they said, hey, listen, we want y'all, in order for us to give you Crimea back, we want y'all to reincorporate these Donetsk and Luhansk politicians into your government, 2 of the regions that's separated now. The reason Ukraine didn't want to do that is because these people are very pro-Russian. They're extremely pro-Russian regions, right? So these regions have been pro-Russian at least since 2014. Before pre-2014, pre the so-called Ukrainian Revolution, Ukraine was a pro-Russian country. So Ukraine almost always sided with Russia on every world event. They had a very pro-Russian world government. I mean, government in general, not world government, it's country, but they had a very pro-Russian government. These areas that are now being annexed were kicked out of Ukrainian politics because they were too pro-Russian post the 2014 Ukrainian Revolution. So it's not a hard stretch to believe that these regions now want to be a part of Russia. It's not something that's completely out of the ordinary. It makes sense because they were kicked out of Ukrainian politics for being friends with Russia.
Right. And so You went over this as well. What is Ukraine's
What is what now?
Ukraine, how are they retaliating against that? What did they decide to do? Or what did they decide to inquire of?
Yeah, so Ukraine applied for what's called a fast track NATO membership. So Ukraine decided that they were going to try to join. They were going to try to join NATO on what's called a fast track membership. Normally, to join NATO, they have to go in and look at They have to look at the strength of your economy, and how much money you owe this person, and the strength of your military, and how many troops you have. How many this you have. They got to get a lot of numbers. Ukraine's applying for a version of membership that only requires a vote. So it's 30 members of NATO. All 30 members have to say yes, you can join, and you can join immediately. All right, so they apply for that membership in the NATO. One, like I said, if you go back and look at this list I just brought up,
it's like 30 people in NATO, ain't it? Like 30 members, right?
Yeah, it's 30 members of NATO, and 2 of them get 90% of their gas from Russia. Another 7 get 40+% of their gas from Russia. It's not very likely they're gonna just say, yeah, Ukraine can join, because Russia's gonna cut off the gas immediately. And Russia's already made it very clear, we're not in the business of fighting NATO. We can't beat you. Another example I gave on my podcast, if 10 dudes walk in and try to jump me now, I got some on my desk, I ain't gonna fight you. I'm not finna fight you.
Right.
Not gonna do it.
And before you carry on with that analogy, because I love that analogy, but a lot of the American people are comforted in knowing that they're not gonna fight against NATO. They're not gonna win against NATO. But just like you said, hey, look, for example, it's not. A lot of people would tell you it's not the most dangerous person you got to be afraid of. It's the person that got something to prove, right? It might be that person that's being attacked on all sides that got something to prove. That's the person you need to watch out for when he can't win, right? But go ahead.
Did the brother freeze?
Yeah, he froze.
All right, can y'all hear me again now?
Yeah.
Mississippi Wi-Fi, man. But yeah, the most dangerous thing is a caged animal. That's very dangerous. That's what Russia is right now. They're animal backed into a corner. They're in a situation where they got everything to lose. So yeah, you're right. Russia can't beat NATO. Russia won't fight NATO. They'll nuke NATO. And they got enough of those to do enough damage to make everybody else say, well, let's wait a second. They can shoot so many nukes in France, they can disable France's ability to shoot nukes. They can't do that to the U.S. But every other country in Europe, they can shoot enough nukes at them fast enough and get them there fast enough. The other countries won't even be able to respond. So yeah, they're not going to fight them, but it's the equivalent. They're going to shoot them. That's all they got. They ain't got no choice.
Hey man, I went to a one of our beloved schools here in central Georgia, and I went to go play pickup basketball there, and a scuffle broke out, and let's say a man came up the court and he tossed the ball to the sideline, right, and he went up and he cold cocked somebody, right, and he started tussling. Next thing you know, the person that he cold cocked, right, his friends start jumping in. Before you know it, it's about 7 dudes on his head. Only thing I saw when I was sitting on the bleachers was the man came up out the crowd of everybody trying to jump him. He went straight to that book bag. And he pulled out that gun. He said, I ain't finna fight y'all, right? I got that heat for you, right? And it's the same thing when you look on the bigger scheme, man. Why fight? Now, man, we live in a coward society where people don't fight no more. They don't fight fair. Why do it when technology has advanced so much? We came from cowboys and Indians, man, when people was using arrows and all that stuff. Even before the guns, man, we was just using swords. Then we got to the guns. Then we got to the cannons, right? And then as time increases, man, it just makes it that much easier to kill, right? Why not do it, man? That's why people preach that World War III is gonna be different. It's gonna be different, man. Hey, and I feel like they put stuff in the media and hidden messages in movies and some of the shows we watch. This might be, kind of forcing it, but if you watch the series Game of Thrones, right? There's a dragon queen, And this dragon queen got a dragon. So it's like, who would want to go to war with somebody that has a dragon, right? But she's in a position, man. It's gotta be the Most High making this comparison, because she's in a position in Game of Thrones trying to get people to join her side, right? So she's looked at like all the big people in Westeros. They're not worried about her because they're like, man, we still have clout, and she's still up and coming, even though she has a dragon, right? We could see that with Vladimir, right? We could see Vladimir Putin. He got dragons now. He got them nukes. He got them dragons, right? And as you're watching the movie, you're like, why doesn't she just use these dragons when she go to war? Why does she keep using her army? Just use the dragons. And it got to the point to the end of the series, she finally used her dragons, and everybody regretted it. Everybody regretted her using them dragons because she had been pushed to the limit and tried so much to where she had no choice, no option, right? And I see that same thing playing out today, man. We're messing with a man that got dragons.
Yeah. And see, once again, another reason the U.S. was so powerful post-World War II is because out of every country in the world that probably had developed these weapons at this point, these nuclear weapons, the U.S. was the only one that said, you know what, I don't care. I'm going to kill men, women, children, dogs, and I'm finna kill everybody. I'm going to drop these nukes and it's over with. Everybody says, you're crazy. Well, who does that? Who says we have no regard for human life? We're going to kill whole cities. We don't care. That's the same thing Vladimir Putin is saying now. I don't care about y'all. I'm telling you now. Right. If you picture the speech he just made after I got off my live, he called the U.S. satanic. He said they're attacking our kids. They're trying to trans our kids. Listen, I believe in the spirit of the Russian people. He on a different type of time.
Right.
Hey, he on that. He on that Isaiah 14:21. Prepare slaughter for the children, so they don't rise up and do the same thing.
He's fighting against something for real. I don't think you realize he's serious when he said he's serious. He really does not like the West in real life. This ain't about just Ukraine. That just gave him a reason to go to war with what he wanted to go to war with anyway.
Right. Did y'all see that that movie? It was on Netflix with Damson Idris and Anthony Mackie. I forgot what it was called, man, but it was pretty much the same thing, right? Damson Idris is the guy that plays Franklin in Snowfall, if anybody doesn't know, right? It's pretty much going on the same thing, and they're fighting for America, right? But Damson gets to the end. In the end of the movie, Damson gets face to face with one of the Russians, right? And he's asking, hey, why are y'all doing this, right? We trying to help the world, whoop, de whoop, de whoop. And the Russian man or the Russian woman, I forgot who it was, says to him, he says, you know, you guys think you're the heroes, but everybody sees y'all as the villain, right? And then they start pointing out how they're the villain. And Damson, he has a conflict of interest now. He's like, dang, we really are the villain, right? What am I really fighting for? And, you know, that goes to show about a lot of our people that's in the military as well, right? Understand what's going on, understanding what side you on. You know what I'm saying? But that's all I wanted to point out, that even in that movie, man, the key players was Russia and America, and it's crazy they released that movie when they did so close to this time as we're in right now.
Yeah, man, because you know, people really, it's like, and I saw the article that the brother was talking about how he said that the whole westernized mindset is satanic, which we know it is, right? Even when you come to the knowledge of the truth, you say, man, westernized civilization has messed up our mind and brainwashed us, and some brothers will even say that's why our women's so wicked, because they've been brainwashed by the westernized world. But this man, like the brother just said, really believes this. He fully believes that this is a satanic nation, right? And he's not wrong either, right? But like, you know, it all just plays a part of prophecy. I know I talked to a lot of people that aren't in the truth, and I try to tell them about some of this stuff, and they're like, man, nothing's gonna happen to America, the US, X, Y, and Z. And I'm just like, man, you gotta think the people that's rising up against Babylon the Great, they have no remorse. Even though they might be smaller than you might think or whatever, like you might say your Irans and X, Y, and Z's and Russia and China, if they got together, they could do some damage to the US, but they'll never happen. X, Y. Look, man, this is what the Bible prophesies. The Bible is prophesying this stuff, and y'all are seeing it before your eyes, but cognitive dissonance takes place, and y'all don't want to act like it's happening, right? But this is Jeremiah 50 and verse 9. For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations, right? Hey, and Russia's just getting greater by the day as far as all these annexations are going. They're claiming people that want to stand up for something too, because like the brother said, these people was already devout anyway, right? It's not like they're forcing nobody. They're getting greater, and as they get greater, best believe people are going to want to cling to them. An assembly of great nations, right, from the north country, and they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence shall she be taken, right? And if you read in the Bible, man, being taken is not a good thing. I know they preach the doctrine of the rapture and don't be left behind, and you want to be taken. But when you read the Bible, all those people that were taken were always killed. There was you wanted to be left behind.
Yeah, that's a good scripture to prove that too. I'm gonna write that down.
Right? It says, from thence shall be taken. Their arrows shall be as a mighty expert man, right? You don't need an expert to make an arrow, but you need an expert to make nukes, right? These arrows shall be as a mighty expert man. None shall return in vain. You can't send these back, right? You can't send these back. And once again, this kind of puts me in the mind of Game of Thrones too, because if you can remember, Denal, Cersei, she was the great whore, right? She had ruled the 7 kingdoms for so long and had power over the earth for so long. She couldn't take it that she didn't have that power no more, and she went down swinging. Hey, look, and she took everybody with her.
It's crazy because Daenerys, man, you know, they was on Daenerys hard because they were like, hey, man, hey, don't use your dragons because there's innocent people that live in Westeros, right? There's women and children that live in there that don't even like Cersei, don't even like living in Westeros, right? They wanna be on our side, right? And then at the end of the day, just like, you know, what Putin and them saying, Daenerys didn't care, man. She hated what Cersei stood for. She hated what Westeros stood for, and everybody had to go, right? So that's a mighty comparison.
What? The Bible says in Isaiah 13, all that are found will be thrust through. But go ahead, Yeshaya.
I was gonna say you could pull up Jeremiah 51 and 1. 51 and 1 and 2. I want to read both of them. It's going right into what you was talking about. Going right into what we saying. You know, all these this war on energy right now is just a big, like the brother Najee goes into on his videos, his lessons, his current events, you know, informationals, his podcast. Hey, look, a lot of this stuff is kind of like, you know what I'm saying, foreplay to the big game. So when you read Jeremiah 51 and 1, it says, thus saith the Lord, behold, I will raise up against Babylon and against them that dwell in the midst of them that rise up against me a destroying wind, right? Verse number 2 says, and Salakia, and will send unto Babylon fanners. Now, fanners is not like talking about like, you know, fans, but they're talking about strangers, right? I want to say the Hebrew word for that is zar or zur. I want to say that's zur. But that shall fan her. And when it says that shall fan her, that's the word zarah, which is like to scatter. You know what I'm saying? To matter of fact, let me look it up. It says to scatter, and yeah, to scatter, to cast away, you know, to disperse, to compass, multitude of things, right? And shall empty her land, for in the day of trouble they shall be against her round about, right? So this is going to be a prophecy that's going to happen to Babylon, right? And I'm just bringing that out to go alongside with Jeremiah 50 and 9, which the brother Azrael just read.
Right, you know, and like the brother said, this fanning is going to be like a scattering. Like, you know, when you got a bunch of smoke in your house and you want the smoke to get out your house, you start fanning it, right? And you're scattering the smoke out your house. That's what it's going to be like here in Babylon.
Not only that, imagine you come outside and you see a old chicken bone on the ground is covered in flies, right? And you start going like this, and all the flies start taking off, right? Or if you in a park, right, and there's a whole bunch of pigeons, right? And you come out and you start going like this. The pigeons start taking off, man. Right? It says this is what it's gonna look like. You know what I'm saying? People are gonna be scattering. You know what I'm saying? Could I share my screen real quick?
Go for it.
Want to get this real quick. You can take that off the screen.
I thought I did.
I'm gonna share this real quick. If you haven't, man, watch this movie right here on Netflix called Outside the Wire, and pay attention to the propaganda that's in there. Pay attention to the plot. Pay attention to the key players that's in this movie, man. Right? Because it describes what's going on right now to a T. Even to the technological advancement aspect of everything too, man. It's called Outside the Wire with Damson Idris and Anthony Mackie, right? It's a very good movie to watch in times like this.
I really think this is I really think kind of like low key this been planned out for a long time though, because even when you go back to April of last year, April 2021, right, when they had the cyber attack on the pipeline, and pretty much now it caused everybody to start buying gas in impulse, and kind of just like, I think it was kind of like getting a test to see how people will react if we had no more access to fuel, you know. So I really think that that was a part of the setup plan that they got now with the attacks on, you know, the pipelines over there with the Norwegian, right? If I'm saying that correctly, all the setup.
Yeah, they show you everything they do before they do it. Everything they do, they're gonna show you before they do it. 10 times out of 10, it's happened before. You've seen it before. You might didn't realize you saw it, but you saw it.
Did they ever find? Well, I would say because I forgot, but I know that dang. Well, I forgot. Did they ever mention who did hack the cyber for the fuel pipeline?
Now they just said Russian hackers, which I wouldn't doubt. Russia, that's another place that Russia has the advantage over almost anybody in the world. Russia has the most advanced hackers in the world. So if Russia wanted to right now, they cut the lights off. They have the most advanced hackers on the planet Earth. They could take down the U.S. power grid without trying.
And see, that's why I said I know that when we first went, when we was going through that little time frame last year, and I was just like, bruh, the whole time I'm thinking like, man, this is kind of like, it almost feels like a setup, because it's just like you got this situation where a fuel pipeline is hacked from, I think where was it from, like South Carolina to Texas, in a sense. Pretty much like if you ever drove on Interstate 20, if you ever drove on I-20 starts in like South Carolina and it goes all the way to Texas. So it's pretty much like the pipeline from South Carolina to Texas was kind of just like hacked in a sense. And when this first started happening, I was like, man, this is a setup, because the way people was buying gas in impulse and the way it had everybody reacting and how the situation was being handled almost was kind of like a lab rat kind of situation in this country. Just like when, you know, the jump shot 19 came out in 2020, it was almost like when they shut the country down, you started seeing people buying an impulse, see how people was reacting. And it was especially hard for, you know, at the time myself, I think, because I was still staying in the UVs, and you would literally look at, like, for instance, inflation. That's the first time I seen inflation at an extreme rate in a low poverty, or in a high poverty community, right? Because Fort Valley really don't make that much money as far as average income when it comes to, you know, the so-called African Americans that stay in that area. Because in the area we stay in on State U, which was the East Ward? Was State U the East Ward or the
Yeah, it's the East Ward.
Yeah, so State U was the East Ward. Staying on the East Ward in Fort Valley, it's not that much the prices on everything wasn't typically that high at the time. But when we got into, you know what I'm saying, the whole pandemic, you know what I'm saying, like eggs went from, I think eggs was being sold at the time 75 cents a carton. I want to say 75 cents. When the panoramic happened, they jumped up to, I want to say $2.50, if I'm not mistaken. Just like for milk, a gallon of milk, because I was drinking milk at the time, it was only $1.25. But when the panoramic came around, it jumped up to like $3.75. So the only reason I'm saying all that is to say that I believe that what's happening now just is equal to like what happened back in 2021 in April. You kind of giving a test to see of how people will respond and how the situation will be handled to set up the Big Bang Theory. You know what I'm saying? That's just my opinion on that, though.
Yeah, hey, facts. And I don't know if the Najee want to pull up the video like he did in his live, but the brother had a video that, hey man, it was recorded in 2018. Recorded in 2018, and people today will think that this stuff is just happening out of the clear blue. Like, when did all this stuff happen? How is this stuff happening this year? This brother recorded about Ukraine and Russia in 2018.
Yeah, that was my. As I said, it was great. That was my first. My first little news update, man, was Ukraine and Russia. They've been at this was, and think about it. They've been to war 2014, 2018. So they've probably been trying to get Ukraine to go against Russia. Nothing you can realize about Ukraine. I know I'll get off on a tangent. Ukraine actually had nuclear weapons. So the Soviet Union did the reverse of what NATO is trying to do now. It's kind of funny. The Soviet Union put nukes in Ukraine because they figured Ukraine would be the last thing to fall, so they would have nukes right there on the border with the Western world. So Ukraine had nukes until Bill Clinton convinced them to give them back. Towards the beginning of his presidency, got what year it was. Bill Clinton convinced Ukraine to get their nukes back. Ukraine had nukes. They had nukes at the time, and them and Soviet Union almost got in a war about them. But yeah, so Ukraine and Russia have been fighting for a while, and it's a perfect area to start war. It's just perfect. It's set up perfectly.
Hey, look, and that was and that's mighty, because I was not even paying attention to know Ukraine and Russia in 2018. But you was like, you know what I'm saying, all praise to the Most High. You was foreseeing how this was gonna pull everybody that had pulled in today. You know what I'm saying, and pretty much into a snare. So I wanted to read this real quick. Right, this is Slakia.
I got a
all right. I'm gonna read this verse, and I'm gonna read verse 4 as well. Jeremiah 50 and verse 23. How was the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder? To be cut asunder means to be like broken in two or cut in half, right? Cut asunder and broken, right? The hammer of the whole earth. And I always tell people, how is this the hammer of the whole earth here in Babylon, America? Because for so long, we've had troops in everybody's land. For so long, we've been the judge. People, other nations and other countries will have disputes and beef, and they'll call us in to sit in on the conversation, like we are a therapist or something, or we're the ultimate judge, right? And judges have that little gavel that's a hammer. So whenever I read this, I kind of envision that. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? Look, they broke that gavel. We don't have it no more. How has Babylon become a desolation among the nations, right? Because once again, like the brother said, this has been happening a long time. The brother made a video in 2018, but a lot of us will look at this and be like, man, how did all this happen so fast? Verse 24 says, I have laid a snare for thee. So everything that's going on right now, these current events, these things that we're diving into and talking about, hey, look, Babylon is being snared, put in a trap. And to be put in a trap, you can't know that you're going in the trap, right? So even though the things that they think that they're doing is wise, they're being set up for the kill. And thou art also taken. Once again, taken is not a good thing. O Babylon, and thou wast not aware. Thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against the Lord. All the wickedness that's done in this land, right? What's the precept you wanted, brother?
Ezekiel 39. I want you to start at verse number 2. because I was and that's a pretty good link up. I got to do more research on that too, because like I said, the brothers from Sakari was like this similar topic with pipeline explosion earlier on a Flux Friday class. And what brought to my attention was he read in Ezekiel 39:1. I'm gonna just read it. So it started, I'm gonna start at verse 1, and it says, "Therefore, thou son of man, prophesy against Gog and say, thus saith the Lord God, behold, I am against thee, O God, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal." Verse number 2, "And I will turn thee back and leave but the sixth part of thee, and will cause thee to come up from the north parts, and will bring thee upon the mountains of Israel." So when it talks about, I will leave but the sixth part of thee, he brought to my attention that when you go look up the sixth part of the whole world, that goes back to the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that. That was something that I just got enlightened about. And I was like, wow, that's kind of like that kind of, and they brought out the information behind it. It was a whole movie about the sixth part of the world, and it was on the Soviet Union. I don't know when the movie came out, but you had something to say, brother?
No, I just say, yeah, that makes sense. Soviet Union. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't expect, I didn't know that, you know what I'm saying? Like when you go actually look at, these places, right? And when people, I think that sometimes, like even myself, like I said, I just got to do a better job at, understanding and breaking down prophecy a little bit more in detail. But when you go look at these things and you go line them up with history, and you see them in the Bible, it kind of just blows your mind in a sense.
Come on, man.
Right?
When it talks about like the sixth part, and you Google that, and it comes up with like the Soviet Union, and when you also look at the kings of the East and who they are according to the Bible, and if you Google that, everything just lines up, man. It's undeniable, right? I wanted to read this real quick because it kind of links up to what you just said. Because a lot of brothers and a lot of sisters, when they try to think about prophecy, and we've had conversations about this before, they think the end of Babylon is the end of the whole world, right? But I'd like to go on a stance and say it can't be the end of the world, because other nations has to see Babylon fall. Other nations have to witness it, and other nations are doing it to Babylon, right? We know that this is not the end, but what you said about Gog, and we know Gog and Magog is Russia, in the land of Russia, or whatever they possess. We know that right there, hey, look, it's setting up to be clear as day. Look, they're finna get the power after this place go down, right? If I could read this real quick in Revelation 20:7 and in verse 8, it says, and when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, right? And this is after Babylon has already fell, right? And shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them to Salakia, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is the sand of the sea, right? So we see that Gog and Magog, right? That country, that leader is going to be used in the end time to gather the nations, not Babylon gathering nations. Babylon's going to be destroyed for its wickedness. But we see that Gog and Magog is going to appeal to these people, right? Because right now, the whole earth has seen what westernized civilization has done, and they don't like it. Everybody's drunk with the wine. We got women in Iran taking off their hijabs, burning them, getting killed by the police. People don't want to be themselves no more because of the wickedness of Babylon. So Babylon got to burn and die. But you're gonna see that power that restores culture back to the world, Gog and Magog, right? Gather everybody together, and you're gonna then, what I'm saying, from my understanding, come to the children of the Most High to try to take us and put us in line. But we know who's gonna raise up a standard amongst them when the enemy comes in like a flood. But that's all I had. Did brothers have any words to say before we wrap this up?
Most High willing, you know, we can get on here with the brother Najee again and just go over some more current events, because even like I said, man, I'm a big critic of myself when it comes to what I'm not doing according to the spirit. And like I say, prophecy is something that I'm trying to get stronger in. But the brother, if you haven't followed him, we got his Instagram mentioned in the comment section. So the brother Najee, man, go follow him, because the brother have been putting in work for a long time trying to, you know, show people the world news. And it's not in the sense of like you think it is. The brother makes sense of it if you can't understand it from when CNN says it or when Russian Times says it. You know, he definitely does a good job of explaining it and breaking it down. And it's definitely very important to know these things, because, hey, look, matter of fact, let me get a precept to close out on.
And I like to add too, the brother Najee makes me sound smart in front of some of my political friends. I ain't gonna lie. Watching his videos, hey, look, I know what I'm talking about now. You know what I'm saying? And they can't deny these prophecies. They come into pass.
Praises for that thing, man.
Come, man. You know what I'm saying? The brother is a mighty vessel within our community, within our nation. You know what I'm saying? To have brothers like this, you definitely want to take advantage of him. Not in a bad way, but in a good way. You know, like the book of Sirach says, hey, when you find a wise man, you wear out his steps. And that's kind of what we were doing on this live today, as you've seen the brothers asking many, many questions, right? And these questions were good, man, because with these questions, it provoked him to answer some things that may not be clear for our people, that he got off in a clear, effective way, which our nation needs, man. So the brother's plug-in is on the screen. And I encourage all you guys that's watching, all you guys that's gonna watch, to go and follow the brother, man, and be that wise man that's spoke about in Sirach, and where this brother steps out. You know what I'm saying? And I know the brother, he does this for our nation. So, you know what I'm saying, he wouldn't mind, you know, answering you guys' questions. Also, I wanted to say, not to praise the creation over the creator, Salakia, but this brother has put in timeless work, man. Even I was on the phone with a brother today. I'm not gonna solicit his name or anything, but you know, time and time again, even when we go down to our old stumping grounds, we hear plenty of people saying how this brother right here help them get into the truth. You know what I'm saying? And that's a mighty vessel, man.
It's 11 o'clock.
Dang. But for
My bad,
so
man. This is my computer.
you good, but for the brother to be putting in work for this long and still to be going this hard, man, it's a blessing, man. And you know, the Most High hand is on this brother, right? So please, where this brother steps out,
if you could pull up,
to the Most High power, man.
You can pull up Ezekiel 3:17. Hey, like I said at the beginning of the video, the brother helped me come into the truth back when, you know, we was in school. So like I said, man, if you haven't yet, if you don't believe it, take it from us, man, go check out the brother Instagram, because he gives out a lot of edification on current events. And like I said, the reason it's important to know these things is because we have to be aware. You know what I'm saying? Hey, a prudent man will consider the house of the wicked. So how can you know what the wicked plans to do if you're not paying attention? Like, I know sometimes, like, a lot of our people, like the brother said, they don't watch news because they're fearful. They don't watch news because they're slothful. Or some people just really just don't flat out care about it. And I was one of those people who just, like, was invested, but not really invested enough to really follow it, because I was just like, well, once I started reading the Bible more, I was just like, I'm just invested in that. But I got to be able to link with what the scriptures say to real time in order to make sense of what I'm going to have to do in the end times, right? If somebody can share their screen for me, Baba Kasha.
Oh, Salakia, I thought I was already sharing.
Nah, it's cool. I just want the people to see it. I mean, I could have read out the book. But this is Ezekiel 3:17, right? It says, Son of man, I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore, hear the word at my mouth and give them warning from me. So the reason that, you know, we have an organization called Watchmen for Israel is because we know that we're all ordained in these times to be watchmen, you know what I'm saying, over our people, right? We're all supposed to sound the alarm, blow the trumpet, give warning, and let our people know, hey, this was finna happen. You know, hey, this was going on, right? Cry loud, spare not. show my people their transgressions, and the house of Jacob their sins, right? These things that we have to do, and we can't do them if we're not necessarily looking around what's going on. Like my rib, she's big on, you know, telling me, hey, we need to pay more attention to what's going on. We need to buy this, buy that. And I just be brushing it off. But in a sense that it makes sense because you never know, you know what I'm saying? Like with this gas pipe explosion, hey, that's something that may not directly affect us right in this very moment, but it's something that will get us back on the back end. The same way when it came to doing these PUA payments when the panoramic came around, right? We got all that upfront money, and then all of a sudden people paying for it on the back end with all this inflation, all this money that we got to dish out X, Y, and Z. People getting caught up for fraud and scamming and lying. Hey, these type of things, if you're not aware of the times that we living in, right? If you're not aware of what's going on globally around you, then you're going to have to make yourself a little, at least more aware, so that way you can know how what's going on in the world may affect your local community. You know, it's a big part to play, to be invested in politics, because not in the sense to follow it as in I want to vote, not in to follow it as in I want to partake in, you know, I'm very interested in the Democratic and Republican Party, X, Y, and Z. No, be interested in it because, and partake in it because, like we say, everything that happens on the big scale can come down to a small scale. And we just want to be the small scale people that look out for our people on that small scale. So with that, man, I yield, and I want to say, hey, shalom to you brothers, man, and another shout out to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? For he has done great things for me. Still in that.
Hey, and I'll say this too. Exactly what Foster Ford just said, man. Pay attention to politics from the perspective of a nation, not from the perspective of a region. All right, pay attention to it and look at it as saying this is Israel versus these other nations. These is Israel understanding the politics that these other nations are going on earth, rather than pay attention from a perspective of I'm a citizen of the U.S. and this is how the U.S. goes and I'm gonna do this in this way. No, listen, you're your own nation, so you got to know these other nations are doing, so you know how to move yourself.
Right.
But hey, with that, man, we're gonna say Shabbat Shalom. Hope this video was edifying, and we also give all glory and praise to the Most High God by the way of His Son, who's an instrument of salvation for the nation. Hope you guys enjoyed this Factual Friday. With that, Shalom.
Shalom.